So, I'm looking a little less than my best. I'm feeling, I wouldn't say less than, but I feel a little lesser than my best. Because I've been through some things, I've made some revelations. And when I made that first video on that whole pedophile thing, I was kind of like chaotic because, like I said, I've been sitting on this for a month and a half. And I really wanted to make sure that when I did this, I would ultimately have my head together. Because, I don't know, it might be my first few YouTube videos, it might also be my last. But one thing's for sure, that after this, I have done my contribution to humanity. And then, whatever happens, will happen. Because I could absolutely give a fuck at this point in time. I have done everything. Manifested, created every idea, only for it to fall down a little endless step because of some one-eyed, you know, yeah, I can't say it, but one-eyed cock monsters, which is all of you. And I will say I'm in my little, you could call it arrogance, you can call it whatever you want. But after everything I've been through personally, I say, you know, I've earned to be this way. I've earned to have like zero pushback, zero thoughts and or feelings or thoughts about feelings, because I spent a lot of time doing that over the years. And I also never knew why. Of course, we're going to talk about the pedophile thing in a minute, but it also had to do with I didn't know where or what the source of my thoughts and feelings were coming from. I knew there was some sort of abuse because I've never been a conspiracy theorist. I've never been a conspiracy guy. I've never been that, believe in cloning, believe in mind control. But part of the reason we're here is because a lot of people do believe in that shit. And I wouldn't say I wholeheartedly believe in any of that shit, because my abuse kind of stemmed as part of it. But I do know that these wounds that are created in our youth are because we're trying to gain access. We want access to our youth. I don't mean access to our youth as mean they're accessible to us. No, access is in we want to control them. Because why would any sane person abuse a child? Or would enjoy the abuse of that child? Well, they want control. Control is just another term for power, but they really mean the same thing. Now, what happened to me was because someone wanted access. Because they knew I would have a grand access of things. And they didn't want anything created without them. And by them, I mean, of course, my parents, but I mean them to a large scale, a grand scheme of humanity who thrives and gets off on attention. Because there have been a lot of things done to me over the years, but one thing they could not do is not make me find my way back. See, because of my sexual abuse, I always felt like I was an incomplete man. I was really like running around with half a brain, like half of mine being mine, which I thought was my sensitive side, and the other half which was like not mine. I felt like there was a void inside my head. But when you've been sexually abused, when you have sexual trauma, you think it's affecting your mind. And it was affecting my mind very heavily because I was exposed to it at a very young age. I'm talking about 3 years old, at best. So at 3 years old, I was subjected to the worst horrors any child could think of. And going back, it was about power, it was about control, it was about having constant access, because what do you get when you poke a hole into a bleeding animal? It becomes weaker, it becomes less able to resist some of the attacks of the outside world. It was precisely one of those main reasons that my sexual abuse occurred. And I spent a lot of time in solitude. I spent a lot of time in nature. I spent a lot of time contemplating about, how it happened, why it happened, regression, to the point where I'm like, I've did so many things, rituals and all these things to try and reverse it so I can get to the top, of it. Where I'm basically looking back now, I said, you know what, as the cipher from the Matrix said, why oh why didn't I take the red pill or the blue pill? I don't know. But at this point, I'm going around saying, you know what, maybe I just should have taken the ayahuasca. I tried everything to prevent the ayahuasca, using the ayahuasca because of I found it a lazy way to interpret, spirituality. And part of the reason I got to where I got was also because, I always taken the road less traveled. I don't have an ego, but if I were to have an ego, I would have taken a lot of pride in that. I was taking a lot of pride and joy that, I got to where I got because I didn't do what everyone else did. But after being on the street for 5 years and having done almost everything everyone else ever did, and still here with more or less a clean mind to tell you about it, I'm not gonna lie, I also had, with my buddies, 2 hits of cocaine. Now, I'm not a big cocaine user. I know plenty of people who did that, but wow, that was an interesting effect. It didn't help me get anywhere. Like that's people, because of abuse, they take to these kind of things to, kind of cope or kind of forget. Which is why I said on my previous video that was on another page, like I'm doing this on a brand new page, which is, alcoholism didn't affect me so much because, again, I was exposed to it to a young age. And no matter what, I couldn't drink to forget. Like, drinking to forget has never been my thing. So I can't drink to forget. That's just not the way I roll. Like, I can't drink to forget. I don't drink for memory loss. And it's always a combination of one or other stuff that will get people to want to forget things, and they engage in more self-destructive behavior. Because when an unknown source or object attacks you, you feel wounded, and as you grow up, you kind of feel like these are self-inflicted. So you are more prone to suicide or more self-destructive methods because you have been poked with, fucked with, at a very early age. But, getting back to, why do people abuse, kids especially? Well, there's lots of reasons I can give you. You can have, like I said, there's the power and control aspect. There's the race aspect. There is the, biblical aspect. There is a psychological, and there's the sociological apathy for power and wanting to have power and power over people at all costs. And I've seen it happen here. I mean, you got dudes walking around here testing, as I would like to call, dick power. But I get called the fag, which is weird, By the way, I have no unuse against that word, so people can take it how it is. But I got sexually abused, and I got called the F word by my dad because I did things differently. Whether or no he created that, void. He created that pain to begin with. He created that incompletion to begin with. But part of the reason all of this happened, and happened so continuously and repeatedly, is because they wanted to make you a clone of someone else. Because we talk about cloning and we talk about copying people, and everybody feels like, and this is part of where people are in an identity loss anyway, because people feel like they have the power to transform themselves into another identity, into another person completely, And yeah, I might get into a bit of trouble for that, but who cares? This is the uncut version. There's a lot that has happened over the years. And besides, I was without a phone for a month and a half, so I got a perfect good old time to think about that. I had a perfect, I had a good long chunk of time to think about that. And I will not be blocked out because, indigenous people are going through this right now. Palestinians are going through this right now. Abuse in the younger generation, in the future generation, is being created, left and right. And it's easy to blame it on everybody else and expecting one person to fix it all for you. So, like, I'm about to do this. It might be a little bit chaotic even now. I don't think we'll be up until the third video where I really get my shit together. Because, like I said, I've had a lot of time to think about this shit. And I spend a lot of time, well, not avoiding that shit. But once I get this ball started, once I get it rolling, I know I'm not going to stop. And I know it's not going to stop. So, I was subjected to, well, what I say, there's no other way to say it, gang rape at 3 years old, and it happened all the way to my 6, and then the physical and the psychological, emotional abuse on top of it to make sure I would never reach it. I mean, they did a horrible thing to me, and, they wanted to bury it. But they wanted to bury it inside me. They wanted me to have all these psychological problems. They wanted me to be called a nut. They wanted me to be called crazy. But I'm sitting here completely, as I said to my Venezuelan friend not too long ago, I said, like, I really do feel like a healed and complete man. It's just, well, I've taken all the garbage out. At first, like I said, it felt like a rat inside of my head that was constantly trying to keep from escaping. And then I realized, whoa, wow, wait, this rat ain't mine. And I tell you, I did everything. I've lived a mundane life. I lived off next to nothing. I lived by collecting garbage every day because it's like, you know what? I have all the time in the world now. And if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to do this battle, if I'm going to face this battle, I have to do it on my own. And I'm not going into a savior complex, or I'm not going into a rough added, patched up area where, I feel like, the whole fate of the world is in my hands and my shoulders thing, because, it isn't. I know that Jesus' story made you all very probable and palatable that one guy can do it all for you. And so you get to just sit back and do nothing and wait for this. So no, I have worked actively to the point where I'm literally, I bullshit you not, this is what's happening right now. Because people call it persistent, call it stubborn, call it whatever you want. I've been called to it all times of way. I had to make sure that I did this for me and that I did it right. There's no other way to do it but to do it right. And, I play the long game. As in, I'm more at peace now. I'm more, in tune and in peace now than I've ever been. Because, when you're broken, you start to do things that, and you can call the Matrix and call it all you want. You start putting pieces of yourself in a way that, I never thought I was able to do before. And the part of disturbing, I should have saved this for the last, but it's coming up in my mind to do it now. Some people, they knew what was going on. They knew what was happening. Because, I mean, if you're a wounded animal and you start bleeding all over, well, eventually someone's going to catch a whiff, right? And part of the reason why I said also, I'm done with humanity, I'm done with people, I'm done with all this shit, because they knew what was going on the entire time. The whole time I was bleeding out, for 30-some years I've been bleeding, and people knew the whole time. And they just saw the opportunity to throw more psychological doubt into you, put their bullshit onto you, and do all these horrible things. Like, even now, I'm more aware of stares and why people stare, because they know that I'm someone they cannot be. And they can't have that. So they're going to do what they have always done, which is not going to work this time, because I'm a healed man, which is, I see where you're trying to poke the holes in. And I'm slowly craving to slow these things, because every attack now is now a learning curve. Every stare, every look, every whatever, it's just become a learning curve, which only helps the healing, which only helps me to heal the wounds done by my society a lot faster. So, because I ended up on the street for 5 years, not because I wanted to, because even there, people have this assumption that I made the choice, to be this way. No, absolutely not. I did it because I had to, because society was throwing curveballs left and right. All this hate, all this not being good enough, all this, pure benign hatred towards me just wanting to exist and just wanting to live a regular life, have a regular job, do well and be good at it. But after all I've been through, I say, well, whatever happens in this world this end of the year or upcoming year is going to be karma well deserved. Because I did the fight, I did the battle. And I see a bunch of people that are just around to, you know, they saw me bleeding out and say, well, either let's stab them a little bit further deeper in, or let's just put all that psychological trauma and up the ante just a little bit more. Because people do believe they have control over you. People do believe that, when you're abused, when you have that hole in you, to really not dig the hole a little bit deeper in any and which way possible. Because people talk about mental health, and people talk about schizophrenia and all these things. Like, people saw that there was something wrong, and instead of helping, they wanted to immediately either attach a label or attach gravity. They wanted to make a dire situation only worse. Because you could talk about psychology, you could talk about therapies. Like, look, I've been through 6 therapists in my entire life. And it all started when I was about 16 years old. And kind of the reason why therapy may be a good start, because even therapy has become like a cult, right? Even that version of so-called healing is just, look, there comes a point in time when the answer is only going to come out of you. That's it. There is no other... There is no really driving force than you. But then you got to be the driving force to you. And my mother was the greatest enemy of all, which said, "Well, don't do that. No. Just keep doing and keep listening what we tell you to do." Only to find out that not only she was complicit, she endorsed it. She benefited from it, and that was it. And that's why I'm saying this video, I haven't said in my first video, but I'm definitely going to say it here in every other video. Like, this is for those who care about their children. Because there's plenty of them who don't. There's plenty of them who don't. And you got to accept that also, that you can call Anunnaki, you can call space aliens, you can get whatever, but no, evil is just coming from that source that doesn't care what happens to their children. It's just an easy cash grab for some. And that's why, you got to be careful who you call friend. You got to be careful who you call, lover. You got to be careful who you call parent, because, yeah, even right here, right now, I'm sitting in, a playground, a garden in the middle of the desert. Well, not in the middle of the desert, but, there's a beach here. It's a little bit of desert area, but, I'm what most people would consider the middle of nowhere. I know I'm good in my place spiritually, and that's all that matters. Because, I've had people come up to me and ask me what my story was. I've had people come and ask, well, hey, why are you doing this the way you're doing? And if I would explain that to anyone else outside of Western society, they would look at me like I'm a madman. But around here, it was like, oh, we understand. We got you. Keep doing what you do. And when you come back to us, you come back to us. All right, yeah. So yeah, I'm skinnier than I've been before. People say, well, you look a little bit more malnourished than you do before. But it's like, you know what? At least I got my piece. And even that, as they're going through what I've been going through, there's still people who try to fuck with it. But I say, you know what? There comes a point in time where, that's going to be short-lived. Because during that moment of my journey, I've been harassed sexually and physically by men, by women who were arrogant, thinking that, because that's part of the reason why I said, like, they saw me bleeding out. They saw that there was something wrong with me. Because when you get to the point of spiritual life, it's like we're all noticing everyone. We all notice when someone or something is not all right. That would be the human in us, right? But I've had a bunch of people where I would say no to advances, all right, whether it be from men or women. And for some reason, they always thought that if they bark loud enough, or if they say it more times than enough, they would eventually get a yes out of me. And even last year, when I first arrived here, I literally had to fight women. I literally had to fight certain women to the teeth. I've had to fight guys, I've had to fight women, and I'm not talking, I literally gut wrenched, almost punched their fucking guts out, both of them, because they look at me and they would not take no for an answer. And I was a guy that said, you know what, I would never hit women, but, the long explanation of that is definitely going to be for another video, but to kind of wrap it up in this story of abuse, when someone like me says no, that's really, because we're in a society where we think we can get a yes out of someone eventually. No, my no means no, and it's only going to be ever used once, to the point where I'm like, okay, am I going to have to break your fucking face 5 times, or are you going to take this no once and just go with it? But that's where we are in the society. We're in a society where we all believe we're all powerful than the next guy, and we all believe that we have more and bigger rights than the other person, and no is not to be taken for an answer. And that's the arrogance of people, but that's also like the evil of our so-called human society inside ourselves. Because even during my abuse, and even sometimes now, because I move differently, I behave differently, the word gay has been thrown more times at me than being able to count. All because I can get a woman's attention differently without having to put on all that attention. Like, even a little something off topic here, but even like, I went to the airport and some guy started to pitching me this Instagram social media love and life story, and it's like, no, it's literally something off of some Wes Watson or Andrew Tate kind of playbook, and I'm not interested in clown shit. So what the point of the story being is, like, the arrogance that social media presents for a lot of people is just, it's bafflingly weird. It's really weird, because for the life of me, before everything happened, I couldn't understand. I understand fully, but I also know there's a story out there that you guys aren't ready to hear, especially when it comes to spiritual side of things, because all this shit just to live dare I say it, a normal existence, was thwarted by the fact that, hey, when you're open-minded and creative, I thought I was open-minded and creative because I actually was open-minded and creative, and now I'm no like, oh wait, I'm open-minded and creative because someone literally cracked my entire system open through sexual abuse, and Do I struggle with that sometimes? Sure, because there is a part of, and you can call it whatever psyche you want, is there's a part of it that attracted to the self-destruction. You don't know why, but when you're as a kid starting to take out pieces of yourself because you don't know why, you know, or you don't know why, you're 6 years old and you're kind of as a kid trying to relive your trauma. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I grew up, you know, putting things in places I shouldn't because I thought it would help heal the trauma. I think those with sexual abuse know where I'm going with this. You know? Because yeah, I've started the video out rough and the story's going to get worse from here, but at least I'm going to try and keep it PG as much as this story, goes on. Because there's a lot more videos that are going to be made. This is just one in a series of many. I thought about doing 13 hours at once because that's really all the time I have to finish this story. Because after all, I am going to live a life. After all, I do have a life to live, regardless whether I make money off this situation or not. It doesn't matter. But after this, my service to humanity is done, and I could really give a fuck about anyone else at this point. Because I've seen it all at this point, and I barely had to move an inch ever since I got here because I'm in my spiritual holy place. I am in my spiritual Mecca. This is as far as, spiritual holy enlightenment I'm ever going to go, and I like that. I don't need to travel far for the things that I got. I don't need to travel, a lot, but I do gotta work. I do gotta do something because I've been relaxing on my fine dining self for a while, and I'm good where I'm at. So, yeah, and part of that, going back to that, really hurts. More so because my right brain feels like finally relieved from all that spiritual abuse as well, because it is what it is. Sexual abuse is spiritual abuse, and it's used to poke a hole in someone for everyone to just attack you. Because we say if looks could kill, but looks do kill. Because looks say more than 1,000 words ever could, and you see why people look at you, and you know why people look at you. And I have been through every version of why people look at me and why. But there's going to come a time when all this going to feel upside. So yeah, there's a reason why good people lose control at the end of the time, because they had to hold it in for a long time, and people don't know that I'm in the open air. Like after all of this said and done, I've killed 38,000 people at the end of the day. So trying to live a human life, even though I'm spiritually free, because people believe that that you're spiritually free, you're also spiritually absent. Where I live, it's mafia and police and mafia running things in coherence with the government. So I'm not going to say that you're not without risk. So that's what I'm saying. Like I never believed or thought that despite me being healed or despite me surviving sexual abuse or not, there's always someone out there who's just a little bit bigger and just a little bit better than you. So I've always tried to treat people with respect. I always tried to treat people with the same exam that I thought I believed, I deserved. But it's just this giant innate battle for control. There's just this, battle to consume a person. Forget buying a person, forget like what they say about Hollywood, about eating people. No, really consume a person from young on end to have them be subservient to no one else but you. And I say that because, that's exactly what we struggled with in the 90s. Like, look, I was a 90s kid, right? I was born on, September, 22nd of 1991. And, yeah, but there's a lot of things that happen because you believe the things people say and people say around you. And I know why my mother hated me reading because, oh, they only want you to know the truth from your elder's mouth. Unfortunately, that truth gets used against you, and that's why, and people believe it so blindly and so wholeheartedly that they'll refuse to do any other research. Because, yeah, some people do believe still that their parents' words are law. And I was from a family who pretend they weren't like that, but nonetheless they were exactly, if not worse than that. Because, like I said, my parents, my dad being the abuser, and there's a twist to that story, but that'll come up until the very end. And you know, well, people think, well, what is the purpose, of abuse other than controlling and consuming a person to be subservient to no one but you? It also has to do with a bit of the, well, pornification of society. Because why would a person sexually assault another person in general? Because they feel deprived. That's what we know. Why would a adult sexually assault a child? Because, they were deprived as a child. And it's been a well-known pattern that those who are becoming sexually abusers have been sexually abused themselves. Well, luckily enough, I've never had that problem. I mean, like, even with the pedophilia thing being as big as it is, right? I never looked at a minor and thought like, wow, that would be attractive. No. Even as a broken pony, I still have my full consciousness intact because I live from my heart. And even that, you get criticized about. Even that, you get criticized about. In Western society, if you live from your heart, you're a dumb person. Even when you live from your heart space, like, oh, you're just the dumbest fuck out there. You're the dumbest person that ever lived. And I've heard my mother say that to people who live from that space. Luckily, my heart has a conscience. Luckily. So I've never been, geared toward that. Because it would have been, I believe if I wasn't so fixed or focused on becoming an artist and later on a husband or later on a father, that, yeah, it would have been easy to be, deprived and to walk around deprived, even though I look the way I do. But, long story short, the dream of being a father and being a husband never happened because I lost my wife and child also in a car accident in 2012. 2013, I went to the army, and I've had 8.5 years of that. Then I went out, tried to find a life. Then COVID happened, everything went to shit. I would argue that things were happening to shit before that, but I wasn't as far in my journey as I was. And then I figured, like, I have to go out because something's wrong. Yeah, I've already survived suicide. I've survived suicide 3 times. I went through the worst of it, been hated at because I was looked at, been hated for what I could represent, etc. Been kicked out of certain jobs, and, for no other reason hated on because, I could. So I felt like I had to leave, because I knew something was wrong. I mean, there's a reason why all this is happening, right? So I went out to find that reason. And sadly enough, oddly enough, you know. And that was the biggest worry of it all. And I've said it before, but people knew what was going on the entire time. There's some people who knew, and you know, they're just people hammering and fighting for control over one person, sexually also. Because I mean, what child obsesses over sex, which is what I was at 6 years old, but having sex with dudes, not even knowing what that was, that was weird. So, and then you get the gay thing thrown around at you at times, and you wonder, well, you start to doubt yourself. Like, is it true what they're saying? But I never had that urge because I've always been attracted to women. So I know that, okay, that's not it. But I spent 5 years on the street because of that. Because I'm not re-entering a society without knowing, well, what's going on? Why am I being hated by everyone in society? Why I'm being looked at like... And even now, as I'm making this video, it hasn't improved because they know. They know that I know. And they know they can only hammer someone in for so long because, like I said, I've been waiting a long time to say this shit. A long time. True. I might have to bump it up to 18 hours after that, But the point being of this particular life of mine has been trying to find out what the fuck was wrong. And I know, and trust me, I've been in situations where I dived so deep into... Now, I won't say it that way, because people talk about the Matrix and they don't even know what side of the story they're on. Everyone believes they're Neo in this story, and you don't know which side you were really on. Me, I'm just trying to find the truth about me and what the situation is around me. Because I was never naive, I grew up on a violently domestic household. I've no illusion about the hardships that is life. I have no illusions about the hardship that is existence. I know people have it hard, and even though I have been where I've been, I know some people have it way harder out there than me. After all I've been through, I'm chilling. But I also don't want to do anything that would create or repeat a cycle. And I say generational trauma was the least of my worries. Intergenerational trauma from both sides. Because, well, that's the flip side to that story is I figured out that, my dad, who sexually abused me, was never really my dad. He was my, dare I say, stepbrother, because, my granddad, ultimately, my father's father, was really, my father. So that was fucked up beyond. And I've always had to live with that. Wow, it's only getting worse. Hold on. Yeah, so I had to live with that fact that, it's a lot I had to process. And it's a lot I've had to fight through. And people would love to believe that I still have to fight through that, but I won't. Did all the work. But the lengths that for anyone who's going through that type of abuse or who's been through that abuse, there is a way out. But you really have to look for, well, how deep do you want to dive within your soul? Because it's called soul searching at the end of the day. Like, you don't go through this because there's something wrong deep in your soul. That's why they call it soul searching. And I've seen people trying to give advice on that, on soul searching, make it like they're driving a sledgehammer through a piece of rock to make a statue. People think like you have to tackle it like that. Well, there comes a point when you do, but it definitely doesn't start out like that. You just want to learn and grow about the world as you grow. But I was in a household that tried to prevent me from growing because they knew exactly where I would end up. Right here. Completely independent. Because we talk about independence a lot, but the real point about societies, what I found out, is that they don't really like that. And I said no one really wants to see you be strong and independent, really. Because their version of strong is independent. Yeah, do whatever you want as long as you answer back to so and so. No, it's not independence. Even the term financial freedom, even in the term spiritual freedom, sexual freedom, or, mental freedom. What does that really entail? Because some people just see these freedoms as an excuse to look. There's a difference between freedom, all right, and actually being free. Right? Because during the 4.5 years I was on the street, I figured out I had freedom, but was I free? Or you can be free, but do you have freedom? Yeah, you can be free from school for a day, but you have to show up again the next day. Or do you have to go into a situation where really like, okay, I've already been through this before? And you could say it's your mind playing tricks on you. It's really someone's conditioning playing the mind tricks on you. And especially that person, because when I was going through it, I felt like my dad, like, oh, I'm losing control. And I said that control was already lost from the beginning because he should have completely destroyed someone. And the reason he did it, which is I feel like a question that's coming up, is the only reason he did it because my mother was head over heels in love with her, and he'd feel like the second best. That's the only reason he did it. Or so that's the prime reason he did it. Is because you wanted to be the only man of the house. And the only way to make sure you would ever only be the man of the house was to, break him in every way possible. Psychologically, sexually, emotionally, spiritually, anything that could have been done, it happened. All right. He wanted complete and utter total control of me. To the point where I figured out that parents do this to their children to get them young so they can mold them into whoever it is they want them to be and never have any fight or pushback. And it kind of trains you for the violent society that they're in, because we're talking about civility. And I've been on this planet a very long time, and there's not much civility in and of it. Civility is what you create in yourself, in your own home. And my mother succumbed to alcoholism. My mother subjected to drug use, and my mother was subject to alcoholism and gambling. My sister turned to drug use and sexual depravity, and I just turned inward. It's the best way I can describe it. I turned myself inward and tried to figure out what is actively wrong with me. And people want to be the center of attention. I've had older generations feel that my presence was taking them over. I've literally had to fight some adults because they felt like I was in their way. That's a more probably reason why I've been treated the way I've been treated in society, because I was in the way. And I'm still being treated like I'm in the way. And I've survived everything. The only thing they haven't done is actually try to kill and bury me, because they've already did it. Even here in a country where it's pretty cutthroat out here. It's safe here, but it's not safe everywhere. So if it comes to a point in time where they want to do something to you, they just can't. And there's nothing, you or anyone else can do to stop that. But it's also because they smell like, oh, I've been through that already. Oh, so I've had people say like, hey, let's kick him. No. he already has been kicked. Oh no, he has already been through this. So I've healed myself, but I haven't forgotten. I haven't forgotten this, mecca that I've, you know, this problem, this mechanical problem of myself that I've solved. Because the last few weeks, and probably my Coke binge has something to do with that as well. Never drink and do drugs at the same time. I'm just saying, especially at your spiritual high place, you can get low just as quick. But it also had to do with me wanting to try something new. And trust me, I've done it all. I can feel skinnier by the day, but point being that sexual abuse and sexual trauma, when you don't know, you don't know. People use this vague excuse like, oh, you don't know because you're a kid and you're not supposed to. But when you're a kid with visual memory, you get through it all. Like I had PTSD by the time I was 16. If someone would have diagnosed me, I would have definitely had PTSD by then. Because I've had all the symptoms of people with PTSD. But that's how violent my household was. That's how innately violent the household was. And I see a lot of people do the same thing, but it's also like, yeah, in society, there's definitely a pedophilia cult. And it's going to be dark soon, and I have a good 10 minutes or so, 20 minutes on that, so I'm going to try to keep it up a wrap. There is a big pedophilia cult surrounding society. I kind of did this first video and a half to kind of establish where I'm coming from. Because I'm a sexual abuse survivor. I'm not saying this because, it's, or treating it like some other YouTubers because, the topic's hot right now. No. This has been going on for a very long time. And, if you're going to solve it, if you want to solve it, you're going to have to tackle it head on, And I hesitate to talk with pain in my heart because I know it's going to be the last video I'll ever make on the subject. And it might be my last YouTube video altogether. Who knows? I've been trying to get this thing off for a while now, right? But one thing I've never stopped believing is, I do it for the truth, hopefully. I lost 2 friends since I came here. One of them said, I wish I had your wisdom when I was your age. And the other one said, I want to be a warrior like you. And I don't know what, thinking back now, I don't know what to say to these words. There's a lot of things I could have done earlier. But, I can't live a life where I'm cleaning up other people's problems just so they can, make a big mess on the other side. That's just not what I'm here for. That's just not what I'm here in this world to do. And 2 lives have died so I can make this video. And these are the ones closest to me. Who knows who else is dying on the inside because, they've had that happen to them. People count me out for my people want to commend me on my bravery, but to be honest, until I met my Marietta a couple of days prior, I just didn't know what I was doing this for. I didn't know why I was still doing this for. So yeah, I got kind of lost. But there's a big pedophilia cult around here, and it stems from elderly age, stems from old age. Is the porn industry accountable for that? On some occasions. Is depravity and the obsession with, the youth, exploiting the youth a very popular thing also? Yes, because, there have been a couple of things, and I'm going to use a lot of references from Ab and Preach, the show, because, they're the ones who primarily called this out a while back. But there's also some inconsistencies and dare say some hypocrisies that I will do in later videos, but that's for each their own. Because we talk about Anunnaki, we talk about all these things, but a lot of people think just people have been one-eyed monsters, and they have been inconsistent with this particular topic, especially when it comes from celebrity. As long as it's their favorite celebrity, they don't care what they do. I mean, R. Kelly, to be named a few, I mean, they let R. Kelly get away with it for a while. They let Epstein get away with it for a while, and they let some people in the royal family get, got a full pardon because of that. So, either we tackle this shit head on, or stop commenting or reporting on these things altogether. Because now they look at the pedophilia thing, and even though I'm a child sex slave survivor, and I've never dealt or dreamt of doing that to another person, I'm being looked at as if I would have done something like that or would be doing something like that. And I also realize why it is, because I'm a pretty face to blame. Because even now, I've been here for a year, I try to do nothing but good. And I keep, being called a villain in every story. So why would I do something for humanity other than to make these videos and then just call it a day? Even now, they want some bravado. They want a fucking target. Because they know of a story. A story that one could tell. The hardest story to ever tell. And that's usually the truth. It started with Cat Williams, and if I am arrogant enough, I will say that it's going to end with me. Who else is getting exposed? I heard him say on the last thing, but it's like we already know. We already know. If I'm getting to the hint on the next video and some of this celebrity shit has been going on, we've been know Beyonce was on Epstein Island, Jay-Z was on Epstein Island, Akon was on Epstein Island, Eminem was on Epstein Island. So, and this is not an American thing. This is just everywhere. But this is in America. It's highlighted now, and this has been going on for quite some time. 40,000 indigenous peoples were kidnapped every year for as long as can be, and no one reported on that. We didn't even know about the Tulsa massacre until the pandemic. So, there's been a lot of shit going on that's been kept from us. There's been a lot of stuff, horrendous stuff that have happened. And if I really want to close this video off with a terrible ending that will leave you hoping for the next video, is that, during the pandemic, they dug up at least 60,000 bodies of Native American children, beaten to death, malnourished, sexually abused, all under the guise of your Jesus Christ. All right? Your holy church. And there's plenty to say on those subject matters, but for now, we're going to leave it here and say, good luck to all of you. And if you're struggling with sexual abuse, and if you are a sexual abuse survivor, and if you are still going through it right now, and if you are feeling like you never get out of it, then please stick around till the 13th episode of my story is over, because it might be something interesting there for you. Maybe to help you out, get over it, It's not an easy thing to get over. I've been busy with it since 6 years old, trying to figure out what was wrong. And at 34, I can say I finally know. It didn't come easy, but I hope to make the road less of a burden for you than it has to be. It's the best I can offer humanity, or any human at this point. See you all later, folks. Take care. Bye.